Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs Pregame Show podcast. Luke Stuckmeyer and Cody Delmendo with you. It is a beautiful night for baseball at Wrigley Field. Cubs getting ready to play the Padres, start a series with San Diego, who they're seeing for the second time this season. Shout out to everybody who's joining us in the live YouTube chat. Best way to enjoy the CHGO experience is to sign up and subscribe for the CHGO Sports YouTube page. Being a diehard is also important. We want to mention that. We'll talk about it later in the show. But happy Justin Steele Day to everybody who celebrates. A loaded Cubs rotation gets their ace back tonight, Cody.
Brother, yes. I used to dream of times like this, Luke.
I know.
Literally like a month ago, I used to dream of times like this.
And again last night.
It's good news, man. Like, this team, one step in the right direction of getting healthy. 21-14, all without Justin Steele. They're actually 0-1 when Justin Steele pitches because they lost opening.
Right.
All right. I know Vegas and all of the projection systems coming into the year actually had him regressing this year. But no, I'm not sure any of them. Well, I know for a fact because of my memory, I somehow remember this. All of those same projection systems said that Shota Imanaga was going to have like a 5 ERA as well. Right. So, it's early. It still could happen, I suppose. But all I know is that this team has somehow, some way, found itself at 21-14 without its best pitcher, at least going into the year. And
arguably their two best hitters.
Yeah, and arguably their two best hitters. But 21-14, getting their best pitcher back, and he's going to be a big boost. And it's going to help the bullpen, too, because now you're going to be able to put Ben Brown into the bullpen and let him cook, hopefully in mid to late inning situations. And we'll see how it works. But he's been pretty good this year. Can't complain too much. He was great against the Mets last week. I think Counsell said today, he told Ryan that Brown will be used in the bullpen in this series. So
quite
I'm intrigued
possibly
to see
tonight that it's a little piggyback because we already know Steele's on a pitch count. They didn't tell us what the number is, but you got to figure
70
after a full
80.
month off. Yeah, at the most 70, 80. I mean, he's not going 90 pitches. No way.
No way. Yeah,
so it could be Brown tonight.
Right. But as he gets back into rhythm, hopefully he's a lot like what we saw last year. And I really think the best part of him being back is that you're going to be able to add one of your better starters who you expected to be more of a reliever this year into your bullpen and help, and the bullpen needs more consistency. It needs some help, especially in the middle to late inning situations. So.
Well, I mean, there's no question you want Steele back. Opening day was, March 28th. Left hamstring strain. And I remember sitting at the bar. We were watching it for our watch party, and it was the worst-case scenario that could happen for this team. He was the one player they could least afford to lose the most for a long period of time because we had no answers about other guys in the rotation. We didn't know what Hendricks was going to be like. We didn't know what Imanaga was going to be like. We didn't know what Assad was going to be like. We didn't know if Tyone was going to bounce back. Turns out Tyone was slow to come back. So there were lots of question marks about the rotation. The one you didn't have was Justin Steele. So they've done a great job filling that hole without him. As you mentioned, like they have done a spectacular job. So much so that in the National League right now, qualified with 6 starts, the top 2 ERA guys in the National League are both Cubs. And they're guys that you would look at and say, they're either middle of the rotation at the beginning of the season or end of the rotation guys in Imanaga and Assad. So now you get your ace back, and you face former Cub Yu Darvish, who a lot of people didn't want traded away in the first place, and you could have used him for a couple years. But now that you've gone through that, the payoff may be coming, in that Owen Casey could be coming back, right? That's the deal. Was Owen Casey?
Yeah, and Yu Darvish hasn't been very good for the Padres this year. He honestly wasn't even really that great for them last year. He's been productive, no doubt, for the Padres, and since the Cubs traded him there. And for the most part, I think you'll look at this trade, the Yu Darvish trade, as hopefully more of a wash. That's if Owen Casey pans out,
or a win.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, if you get an everyday player that turns out to be an all-star for a pitcher that was just going to be here for what likely would have been several rebuilding years regardless, then it could still be a win,
I guess.
Right? Like you could depending on how good Casey is, it still could be a win. Well, now, obviously, it could be a loss, but you just don't know until he comes up and you see what you get.
Yeah. Well, we all know why they traded Darvish, and it largely, half the fan base thinks it's because Ricketts didn't want to pay him. The other half of the fan base thinks it's because they wanted to replenish the farm system and rebuild. I think it's a little bit of both because of everything that happened in the pandemic year and all of that. We can talk more about that on postgame if you want. But either way, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, if Owen Casey turns out to be a stud, then I guess you could say the Cubs won. If the Padres don't win with Yu Darvish, I guess I would still call it more of a wash, because when they traded Yu Darvish, I mean, he was in the Cy Young race when they traded him.
It hurt.
And I think you can argue that the Cubs shouldn't have just gone full rebuild, even though I wouldn't even really call it. It wasn't like the Theo rebuild in some ways. It has been, but it hasn't been. And I don't know. It
was the first point where you realize you're like, this is it.
Yeah, basically.
This is it. They are going that route.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was like 3 years of just bad. Last year was a lot better than we expected. I go back and forth with it. Again, they made that decision, and the Padres have done, for the most part, well with him, and Owen Casey has the most raw power in the Cubs farm system. He's a top 50 prospect, and we could see him here this year. And he's a left-handed power bat, something the Cubs really, honestly, don't have a lot of. So they envision him being a big part of the future, and I'm excited to see what he can bring down the road.
And he's a Canadian and a ginger, so we'll see. Super chat from Foreign Empire, $20. Oh, wow. Throwing the dough. Thanks.
Credit to Foreign Empire.
Let's steal this series, STEELE. This series, just want to let you know that I appreciate you all for always being here to chat about this beautiful team. Go Cubs, go. Stay classy. CHGO.
Never forget when Foreign Empire became a diehard after I did a beer bat.
Now, see, that's beautiful. And he's saying stay classy, CHGO, because they're facing San Diego. Ron Burgundy worked in San Diego, and his was stay classy. I got it all. That's a very well thought out $20 right there. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
We haven't really, I guess we've mentioned it, but we haven't. We're talking about the pitching, and Steele's coming back. You won 2 out of 3 against the Brewers.
Yeah.
And it was close enough that it could have been 0-3 against the Brewers or 3-0 against the Brewers.
Sure.
But you'd sure take 2 out of 3.
Yeah,
and it was, again, 3 starters, no earned runs. 18 and a third out of those guys?
Yeah.
And again, none of them are, when you go into the season, you're not saying any of those guys are the ace of the staff. Tyone's probably number 2. But just an outstanding job to go have your starters give up no runs against the Brewers, who are in first place,
and have one of the best offenses in the league
so
far this year.
I mean, a heck of a job.
Yeah, and I know they have some injuries too. Yelich didn't play this weekend, and
womp, womp.
I don't care. I think that I said this on the recap show with Brennan yesterday. Them winning that series, I think it's a tone setter for the season between the Cubs and the Brewers. I still think the Reds are going to be there. They're kind of hurt right now, but Lodolo's been kind of good for them. Hunter Green has had some nice starts for them. if they get on a roll and they get a little healthy with Friedel and McClain back, and if Elly De La Cruz keeps playing the way he's playing, they're going to be there. But,
well, that was the first series against a division team.
Yeah.
First time they've played somebody in their division this season.
Right. But all I'm saying is that
the Cubs, I mean.
As far as Cubs, Brewers, right now it looks like they're going to be the two top teams at the top of this division right now. And I think we all thought maybe Milwaukee would take a step back this year, and they still could. They're being tested right now with their depth. With some of the injuries they've had, they've kind of struggled. They sucked on offense this past weekend, and the Cubs didn't even throw Steele or Shota Imanaga. William Contreras is off to a great start. He's on having an MVP type season to this point. But I've always thought that the Cubs, of any team in the Central, they had the most depth, the most quality depth, and as we started the show, 21-14 without, largely without Steele, a bunch of games without Seiya and Bellinger. Merriweather's been out for a while. Jordan Wicks has been on the injured list. Kyle Hendricks hasn't been that good, and ALLCITY hasn't been good. All on top of some of these other injuries, and I don't know how to I don't know how Milwaukee will be able to hang around all season, but. They got a lot of young players, and I'm sure Churio will get better as the season goes along. He's going through that adjustment phase, it feels like. He didn't necessarily impress me this week, but I feel like he will be better as he gets more experience. And perhaps you got Milwaukee at the right time. And I'm not trying to take any credit away from us, but I do feel like it was a tone setter for this Cubs Brewers rivalry for the season.
I like that tone setter. If you're baking a cake right now and you're the Cubs, and you're stirring it up, you forgot a lot of the ingredients, or a lot of the ingredients were expired or bad, or you put the wrong thing in or the wrong amount, and somehow the cake still has turned out right. And everybody still likes the cake. So now you look at it and you say, that was the first time you faced a division opponent. Now, moving forward, you're going to make the next cake, and you hope some of the right ingredients are in it next time. You're like, wait a minute, we could start a business with this cake. And then you make it again, and another Steele's back. You make that cake, it looks better. The next time you go to stir up the ingredients on that cake, wait a minute. Now Bellinger's back. Now Seiya's back, and you say, well, we're not just start a business. We're going to start a corporation, and we're going to start selling crumble cookies. We got something brewing here. Now we're really cooking something up. I think we said at the beginning, I believe, you believe, we all believe that the Cubs should win this division. Nothing I've seen in the last month changes my mind. The only way I see it not happening is if all these ingredients keep getting screwed up throughout the season. If the injuries just continue to happen over and over, like if Bellinger's constantly on the injured list, if Seiya's on it multiple times, if Steele goes back on all these things, knock on wood. But if the Cubs are indeed getting healthy, and the biggest problem has been the bullpen, that's going to be getting some help. All of these guys can't stay in the rotation. So Wesneski, who's been pitching well, likely will be heading to the bullpen. I don't know how you could take Assad out of the rotation right now. So where are other guys going to fill in? Now Ben Brown is the first piece to go into the bullpen, and you see how he helps. Right now, when you're looking at it and say almost everything has gone wrong for the Cubs in the ingredients portion of this division race in the first month of the season, and somehow 21-14. I don't know that anybody, you're worried about the Reds. I don't know that anybody's going to hang with them if they can actually get healthy and play like the way. Not that it's a perfect roster. I just think it's the best roster and the best rotation in the division, if healthy.
I just remember last year when it came to the Reds going into the year, we all thought they'd finish at the bottom of the division. Yeah. And they got insanely hot in May and June and July. And, then they fell apart because De La Cruz, the league figured him out and he couldn't readjust. And, he's playing like an MVP type player. And, again, they're doing they're treading water right now without two of their better players from last year. And I think their pitching is definitely a big if, but depth is a big problem with them as well, I think. So I, in general, agree with you. All things considered, I just think that they're they're not a team that you can't just pass over. We all kind of were afraid of, or kind of eye-opened again by the Pirates for the second year in a row, and now they're like 5 games under 500.
Yeah.
And they started the year hot. The Cardinals have been laugh out loud funny bad.
Lost the series to the White Sox.
Shout out to them. And shout out to CB Buckner on Saturday, by the way. That was the greatest ending of a Cardinals game I've ever watched in my life, outside of Game 4 of the NLDS in 2015. But anyway, I feel like right now those are the 3 teams in the Central that are an actual threat. So things can change though. The Cardinals offense, it's actually kind of weird. The Cardinals pitching has been better than I expected, but their offense is awful, bro. Like Goldschmidt, Arenado, like they look old, right? And Lars Nootbaar hasn't been very good to start the year. They've had some,
and
other
he's
injuries.
A real guy, right?
Yeah. Apparently,
real person.
That people are saying, they optioned Jordan Walker. They have all kinds of issues on offense. It feels like more issues on offense than pitching, at least in their rotation. And we all thought their rotation was going to be their biggest problem. So it's kind of weird, and I don't understand. But anyway, I just feel like the Cubs, they just have the most depth, and they're getting a lot more contributions out of young dudes, and those extremes that I always give Brendan credit for this, like, because he always says it the best way, explains it the best way, but the extremes that hit for the Cubs that could increase their win total more than what those projection systems say at the beginning of the year. And right now they're on a pace to blow that projection out of the water because of guys like Shota,
right?
Guys like the Ass Man, guys like Michael Busch has he's been up and down offensively, but he's been good enough that you can play at
been
first.
Very good, yeah.
He's been good enough that you feel comfortable playing him at first base every day, and that was a massive problem all year last year for the Cubs until Bellinger started playing there.
Morel's been better defensively at third in the last 3 weeks.
And he's been better offensively.
Yeah.
In general.
3 walks in a game?
Right?
What?
And then Mike Tauchman is, instead of the summer, it might as well just be called the Era, And
we're going to have to name a street after him in Arlington Heights now.
And before Seiya got hurt, he was arguably on pace to be an all-star. And, he still could, depending on what happens when he comes back and, voting starts. But, they've had a lot of things go their way, a lot. And I bring all this up because a lot of people whether it's my Twitter mentions or other social media platforms are like, oh, this team would have, 21-14? This team would have 26, 27 wins if ALLCITY didn't suck. And it's like, well, they also, you want to go to all the games, you want to go through all the games that they probably shouldn't have won either, that they won. Like,
it evens out.
It's all kind of evened out right now, in my opinion. I don't necessarily disagree with the people who are saying this stuff about ALLCITY, but at the same time, they have had some good fortune go their way too. So I would say it's a little bit more evened out right now. We're in a good spot. You're 21-14. All things considered.
Craig Brindle wants to talk more about cake. All I'll say is the main ingredient of Javier Assad is not coming out of the cake. Oof. Not coming out of the cake right now. I can't decide. Assad, Imanaga, Tyone, Steele, which one's going to win the Cy Young? Probably 1, 2, 3, 4 the way it looks right now. Hey, how about the Friday 120 Club, huh? We were there.
Luke went to beautiful historic Wrigley Field before Memorial Day.
Joey was there.
Yeah.
Let me my main takeaway from the Friday 120 Club, it was a great turnout. Yeah. We had a good time, even though the Cubs, that was the only game they lost in the series. We had a good time before the game. We had a good time after the game. We had a live post-game show at Almost Home, the meetup at Murphy's. Nothing. You can't see it now because it's died down. I'm going to tell you that I made one of the biggest bonehead mistakes of all time.
Did you not bring sunscreen?
I put sunscreen on my face, thinking, oh, it could get sunny. I better have some sunscreen. I put it on my face and my ears and stuff. But when I left the house, it was cold and cloudy, and I had a sweatshirt on. I had a hoodie. And I never considered that I'd be taking the hoodie off at the game. And we walked into the bleachers, and I just took the hoodie off, and I was like, oh, wow, it's beautiful. You know, T-shirt weather. Then all of a sudden, I'm standing next to Joey. I'm like, I'm hot. Yeah. I'm hot out here in jeans. And I looked down at my arms, and I was like, I don't think that's the polarizing shady rays. I think my arms are starting to get burned. By like the third inning, I was trying to hide up underneath the vending areas because my arms were so scorched I mean, scorched. That when my baby at home grabbed with the little fingernails, I almost went through the roof. It took 2 days for it to feel like. So I won't ever make that mistake again.
I think
it was a good time.
My trip to spring training this year gave me a nice little coat. So I felt, outside of wearing jeans on Friday, I felt okay.
Right.
However, it was the last game of the year where I'm wearing jeans to beautiful historic Wrigley Field. Next Friday, 120, on my birthday, I'm wearing shorts.
Right, but when I fill out...
Kevin Wells might have had it a little worse than you did, though.
He had a black
He
T-shirt
looked
on.
pretty rough.
He did. Well, Wells is in my group.
He was pretty red.
Yeah. I was like Cubs red. Like I was burnt like a lobster. But the difference between you and I is when I fill out my driver's license form, I skip by Caucasian and I go to bright white. That's what I go to. And
Albino?
Yeah. I go bright white. You know, like there you can get paint at the store and there's like, mild white, regular white, and then there's bright white. And it's like
There's Luke Stuckmeyer.
there's a picture of me on the can. Anyways, hey, Die Hard memberships. We had almost 200 people sign up or renew to be Die Hards just last month. I think 67 or something like that were new members, and then the rest were renewals. So another good month. Don't miss out on being a Die Hard. Shout out to our newest Die Hards, Mario, Reed, Michael, and Jim. Thank you. And you get to, I saw that Ryan's got his new newsletter is out.
Yeah.
All kinds of info coming in that.
Discord's always fun.
Discord's fun. You get the Die Hard
I haven't
card,
been in
which
there
again,
in a while, but
I was
I've been
throwing that
busy.
I was throwing that Die Hard card around Wrigleyville, and people were just like, "Sir, come on, right this way, sir, right this way." Yeah. I didn't park for free, but it's only because I didn't show the Die Hard card.
We have to mention, or we have to at least discuss about how the entire pregame at Murphy's, you were basically in the street because you went to get donuts at Do Right.
Yeah.
And then you came back, and if you were on the you could have just hopped the fence on the patio, and I'm sure they wouldn't have even cared.
Well, I knew I was going to have to go through, the guys checking IDs. I didn't know that they were going to care about it, but I thought, I'm just going to go to the fence and say, hey, anybody want a donut, And so it was the sidewalk. It was under the trees. It was nice and shady. The vibes were going.
They cared.
The blue moon was flowing. They didn't, credit to Murphy's, they didn't want those donuts coming in because they sell some of their own food inside, I guess.
Okay.
They didn't want those donuts on their patio. So I sat out there with like a pizza box my hand.
You did.
For like a good hour.
A good hour.
People were like, who is that guy? And it's just like, just another vendor. Just a vendor. Just a 50-plus vendor holding donuts in the...
But then they let you bring them into Wrigley Field, and then
Wrigley
you gave
Field,
them away.
I walked into Wrigley Field, and the one security guy did say, hey, I need you to open that box, just so I wasn't carrying something sketchy into the ballpark. And he looked, and he was like, okay, you're good to go. And then he looked back again, and I was like, nah, I don't have any Boston cream. Sorry. But he was eyeing them up. I'm like, man, I only got a dozen here. I can't give them to every security guard.
You are a man of the people in the bleachers, though. I give you all the credit.
Blue and red sprinkles, huh?
Yeah.
Did you get one or not?
I did not. I didn't want one.
You passed.
I passed. I probably should have at least had
You were pretty
one.
deep into the blue moons by that point.
I guess.
You had a couple shots before the game.
I did these shots with this guy named Austin. I gave him a shout out on our post-game show on Friday. This guy named Austin who came into my TikTok live like 4 days before last Friday, and he asked me, like, Cody, like, what do you do in Wrigley for your birthday? Like, what's a good bar to go to? And I was like, well, if you're coming Friday, you got to go to Murphy's because we're doing an event there. You can come to that, and then you got to sit in the bleachers because you're turning 21, and that just makes sense.
Oh yeah.
And then I told him, we're doing our post-game show at Almost Home. You should come through. And then perhaps after, you should go to Sluggers when all the crowd dies down. You get some hacks in at the batting cages. And so, long story short, again, he came out to our event. And the kid lives in Michigan. He came with his mom and like 3 or 4 of their friends. It was like mind-blowing.
He was a nice kid.
Yeah,
and by the way, we're not bagging on Murphy's. That's their right not to want outside food coming into their establishment. If everybody did that, you could just bring sandwiches in and eat for free. So I get it.
Luke learned his lesson from the next time.
I just didn't know. So I knew it was.
Luke should have just got some tater
questionable.
tots like I did.
I should have purchase something I could stick into my pockets.
Sure.
Then I could take them out.
Or you could have just got one donut.
Or I could have just had one donut myself. Kyle says donuts, crumble cookies, cake. Can you say diabetes?
Hell yeah, brother.
That's not nice. That's not nice. Hey, so the injury updates before the game. We had Counsell and Hoyer talking before the game. Cody Bellinger is going to be back this week.
Yeah.
So there's a roster move coming. And Seiya Suzuki will go out on a rehab start because he's been out longer. So, but I don't think that's going to be very long. I wouldn't be surprised if both are back this weekend.
Yeah. Bellinger, didn't Counsell say he could return in this homestand?
Yes. And so,
So he could be in the lineup tomorrow.
He could be in the lineup tomorrow. Then it'll be interesting to see who starts to stay on the roster, who gets moved back. We were talking about Assad, just mentioning you can't take him out of the rotation. The guy's 1-2 in ERA in the National League. Well, Pete Crow-Armstrong's done a nice job this time around. So I don't know what you do with him. Obviously, Bellinger's going to come back and play the position that.
Well, the thing is
unless you ease him back.
The thing is that Mike Tauchman's been incredible.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're not touching Tauchman either.
So you have Happ, you have Tauchman, you have Bellinger, you still have Canario on the roster.
Well, I think he's going to be.
Yeah, and
I think he's going to be the guy. Now, maybe he's involved in a trade too, but PCA has been a bit of a spark plug when they needed him. Like the Brewers, they noticed Pete Crow-Armstrong.
The point I'm getting to is here. I'm not even trying to talk trade or whatever. I'm just saying, when it comes to getting Bellinger back on the roster, because they have to make a move, right? Like Canario obviously is the one that makes the most sense to send back, but Seiya is going to come back eventually too,
quickly, yeah.
And
like two spots.
But I'm also like, well, how, will they play Bellinger at first base some just because of the injury in the outfield wall? You know what I mean? Like maybe just every now and then. I'm not even saying all the time. I'm just saying a little bit just because of the injury that he had, because they did that last year when he got hurt in Houston. He came back, he played a lot of first base.
Yeah.
And we all, I think it was largely because they had no production at first base, but at the same time, they did say that they were doing that because they needed him to play. So I'm curious to how the Cubs are going to do this. I think for sure when Seiya comes back, Canario goes back, but I think when Belly comes back on the roster, I personally think PCA is going to go because I think the Cubs want him to play every day.
Keep playing.
And I just don't see how he's going to play every day unless the Cubs have the idea of we can play Bellinger at first base a little bit because we don't want him to get hurt. And then you can DH Bush and and it's not like they have a DH
by the way,
right now.
The
like
one thing I haven't liked that the way Bush has played is picking the ball at first base. Bellinger's better at it.
Sure, yeah, he's a better defensive first baseman. Yeah.
So we'll see how that all unfolds, but it's going to be interesting over the next couple of days.
But when Seiya comes back, that's when I feel like PCA could go back. Because you could play Tauchman in center. If Tauchman keeps performing like the way he has been,
I mean, Tauchman's not going anywhere. He's on this team.
Well, I'm not.
No, I know. I'm just saying out loud, like everybody in the chat that's thinking that, like he's not going anywhere. He's been a key piece of keeping them afloat.
Right. So it's a good problem to have. I'm not even advocating for PCA to go back to Iowa. I'm just saying, in my head and how I think the Cubs are thinking, these are the two scenarios. They could send PCA back and Bellinger's going to go play center every day, and they're going to continue to play Bush at first, or Bellinger might play some first base because of trying to play it safe with the.
That's the route I would go
with the potential injury that could happen again, at least for a little bit. Let PCA play center, face right-handed pitching, and then you can play Tauchman in right field until Seiya is back, which could be a few games,
2 games.
But the moment that Seiya comes
games?
back, then I feel like PCA will go with Canario for sure. So
well, we'll see. All right, everybody's been waiting for this. Jim says #Luke was right. That's true. By the way, Gary, I wouldn't be surprised right now. My guy Slaughter.
Your guy Slaughter?
My guy Slaughter. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of teams are asking about Slaughter in trade talks. You're looking for a reliever. I wouldn't be surprised if some teams are saying, "Hey, who's that Slaughter guy?"
His last name's Slaughter. He clearly destroys things.
Seems like you got
destroys baseballs, right?
Seems like you have a log jam there. Maybe what about that Slaughter guy? Anyway, who you got? Everybody's been waiting for it. Tonight's who you got picks.
That's the most important part of the pregame show.
I don't remember who everybody took over the weekend, and we'll have to add up all the facts. Did I see that Ryan has tried to re-add these standings?
Did you not watch the end of the show?
I didn't see the show.
Oh, my God. You got to watch the end of the podcast that Corey was here for. I think that was Wednesday. You got to watch the end.
Ryan's got a little stucky to him when it comes to trying to fabricate the results.
He added them all up.
He did.
Oh,
he did.
Beautiful.
And then I told him, like, I revealed
and he lost
it.
his mind.
He did kind of like face palm a little bit, but it was like he would do that. Yeah.
Do you know everything that happened, Joey?
What?
Do you know how it all went down?
No.
So I had added them all up, and it was a month's worth of who you got, and it took me the entire game. And somehow on my laptop, I hit delete. Somehow I deleted the whole thing. 2.5 hours worth of work. And I'm like, I'm not redoing this. We'll just start again at 0. I was winning, but we'll just go to 0.
No.
And then
you just decide to make up numbers.
Well, I said we should just make them up. And then we all started laughing. We're like, yeah, we should, because Ryan cares about this enough that he's going to be I go, yeah, I'll give him the lowest
and he
score.
Legitimately,
I go, he'll spend hours counting these all up.
He spent 7 innings. He spent 7 innings, and he
did.
legit brought paper, and it's all written out.
He did. I saw him doing it. I was here that day.
Yeah. If there's anyone who's kept track of who you got this weekend, it was Ryan.
Oh, yeah.
I think Dansby, or I think Brennan won yesterday
He's got
because
a
he took
zip file.
Dansby.
He's got one of those
like,
zip file discs.
But like him and Brennan fought over who won yesterday. Ryan took Morrell yesterday, who had 3 walks and an RBI single. Dansby had the homer. Bunch of really good defensive plays.
The one was really tough when you had Morrell. Did he win or not win with 3 walks and a hit?
Yeah. I personally gave it to Brendan, who took Dansby because he hit the homer, and he had 2 defensive plays that saved runs.
Yeah, it's tough. All right, who do we have for tonight? I don't remember who I took, to be honest with you.
I took
do you have them, Joey, or no?
I don't have him up right now.
All right, hold on. I'll find him.
I took Jan Gomes.
I'll find him. I got him here. Cubs, let me see. Okay. Cody has Gomes. Ryan has Nico. I took Morrell, and then Brennan took Dansby because that's the way he's been going.
Well, I also said after yesterday
now
that he has to start taking Dansby every day again.
And Corey took nobody because he's in Costa Rica.
Yeah, for a wedding.
Man, that guy travels.
Credit to me for once again walking his dog.
I hope he's got pre-check and all that stuff. The way that kid travels, he's all over the place. World
I saw
traveler.
the pictures on his Instagram story yesterday. They're having a good time.
Tropical. He's having a good time.
Tropical, yeah.
Wearing a lot of flip-flops. No, Ravi, please do not tell me you tweeted at Murphy's because we are not mad at all. I didn't even ask him. I didn't even say nothing. I didn't say anything.
I am taking Gomes tonight because he has struggled, but he has good numbers against Yu Darvish. So maybe, perhaps, I'm getting him over the hump.
Little
hump. Mm-hmm. Little hump, you know. Sorry, Gary. I'm taking your guy tonight.
And Gary, I don't hate you. We're just on the slaughter train.
No one hates you, Gary. We're just jumping on the slaughter train with you, dude.
All right. Thanks for checking out the CHGO Cubs Pregame Show podcast. Cody and I will be back after the game, hopefully to fly the W and do a Blue Moon beer bat chug, which may or may not have some sort of new special twist to it tonight. That's called a teaser. Cody doesn't even know about this yet.
I have no idea what he's
Could
talking
be a
about.
little special something.
Good
Darvish versus Steele. It's coming up next. Until then, an hour post game afterwards. Join us then. Fly the W.